Hello, I'm Mark from Straylight Entertainment, and this is an introductory video to our map editor tools. So from the main menu, we're just going to go straight into Editor, and to begin with, you're going to want to create a new campaign. For beginners, it's worth doing a copy of and selecting either Stormclaw or either Wolf, and that will give you everything that you need to make a kind of a working campaign with all the scripts. For modders who are more happy to get their hands dirty, you create a campaign folder which is will be stored in My Documents, My Games, Sanctus, and then you can give your campaign its title, which will be presented on the campaign selection screen. There you can kind of create your own scripts and missions and story, and hopefully you'll be able to share those things. You'll also be able to create a multiplayer folder which will store all your custom multiplayer maps, and I'm currently working on a multiplayer map for some YouTubers, so I've already created a multiplayer folder, so I'm just going to load that up. And here you'll be able to see a list of all your current missions that you've either created or are currently working on. Just for example's sake, I'm just going to create a new scenario. And here you can change the size, the height and width of your maps. I'm just clicking on these little buttons. And also the base terrain style, which is the tiles that it will use to create the environment. But as I've already started working on a mission, I'll just load that up. This is going to be a very, very quick, brief overview of the editor and the tools, with plans to do more in-depth things in the future. So I'm just going to go through a few of these buttons and explain what they are. So in the tile placement mode, you can start painting down the tiles, and getting the roads in and all these decals and everything. And I always find it's easier to work with the grid off when I'm doing this particular part of the level design. So if you hit G, you can show and hide the grid. And I always find it's a little easier to work with the grid off. Now, holding Control and the left mouse button down, you can start plotching in hills, and there's a number of degrees of elevation that you can go, so you can make quite big hills, and likewise you can also make kind of trenches as well. So it's actually, for the visual quality's sake, it's actually quite good to mix two styles together. So for this mission that I'm working on at the moment, I'm actually using the Imperial Fortress textures, which is here, and I'm also using the Hollow Hill textures, which is for the rocks, these kind of mountains. And you'll see that in the tooltip it says cliffs, and the tooltip's really important for the terrain type because cliffs are completely impassable to our units, so they can't walk on anything that's cliff related. But you might see that there's also some tiles that will be rough ground, and they will also influence how your game plays. So going to the Imperial Fortress, I'm just going to, for example, I'm just going to start painting a few things down. Just get rid of that rock because it was a little too much. And we also have some trims like decals, and so they can just add in a little bit of extra detail here and there, just to make the environment look more detailed than it really is, because a lot of it really is down to the tile work. And I'll stick one there, we'll stick another one there. And we also have just a square that is good for the corner pieces. So hitting the R button rotates. That pretty much rotates everything in the game, really. So I'm just going to rotate them around and stamp them down. So here we have our nice bit of terrain work. And you'll notice that some of our tiles also kind of paint over others. So if I select tile 8, for instance, I can just kind of paint over these. By painting an adjacent tile to the road, we can just make it look more dusty and more weathered, and that's really cool. I'm going to move on to the object placement button. So just like the tiles, we've got all our environment props in various kind of folders or groups. So we've got Imperial pipes and you know, Gothtown things. And again, for this environment that I'm working with, I'm using some Imperial Fortress objects, which is for the buildings. So we've got some really nice looking kind of buildings here. I'm also using Wasteland for some of the walls and skulls and things, just to give that a little bit of extra detail. And I'm also using craters for like rubble, so you can just kind of get in there and just, you know, stick in a few extra bits just to make it look, you know, just like it's all rubbly, and that's pretty cool. So for rotation, if you hit R, it will rotate our objects in a kind of a 90-degree snap. But we also have a free rotation by pressing and holding page up or page down. So page up and page down just gives us a free rotation. We also can do home and end, which is our scale. So we can do some really big objects. And by hitting insert on the insert key, that will reset our object to its proper scale. It's not a good idea to really scale too many objects up, because you can see here that I've placed a wall down, and you'll notice that the grid is actually raised up with that object. So in the game, that would either have a shield or a half shield, or, you know, an eye with a line through it if it's blocking line of sight. So, but the UI won't scale to the object, so you might get some funky results if you scale objects too much. And that's essentially it. And again, just like the tiles, we don't really want to mix too many of these folders up into one environment, just for memory's sake, really. The next thing is the unit placement. So by default, when you first open up the unit placement mode, it has the Space Wolves selectable, and if we hit it again, it will display the orcs. So the orcs are going to start up there. So I'm just gonna stick a few bolter guys down, and again, hitting R will just make them rotate their starting facing area. Oh, there we go, that's fine. And we'll do the same for the orcs. So we'll put some flash kits down, because they're nice and annoying. And maybe some orc boys. Okay, I'm just hammering R there just to rotate them around. Now you'll notice that they have a fixed by their name. So fixed in the multiplayer and the single player game is when the units are already part of your force for free. So you don't need to select them in the actual force selection screen. But by pressing F on them, that will mean that they are purchasable from the force selection screen. So you won't begin with these. But for this multiplayer map, knowing that there's going to be some YouTubers playing it, I kind of want to have a bit more control on what they begin with. So I'm going to be sticking with fixed units. I'm going to jump straight to the AI dialog window. And here you can see that there's teams. So say, for instance, I'm just deciding that my flash kits are going to be Team 3. So by selecting Team 3 in this dialog window and then just left clicking on them, I'm setting these to Team 3. Below that is aggression. So this is more important for single player AI driven missions. If we hit the little show help question mark, you can see here our kind of predetermined behaviors. So generally 64, which is stay dug in, 16, which is seek and destroy, they're kind of, they're probably the most used behaviors in the game. And behavior 0 is just a default, attack. So say for instance I want Team 3, which is our flash kits. I want them to be quite aggressive and seek the player out, so I'm going to go for 16 for these guys. So by holding down the shift button, we can increase in increments of 10. So there's 10, and I'm just going to go up to 16. So their behavior now is 16, which is seek and destroy. So say for instance that I also want the team to stay together. So 2 is keep the team group together when moving. So I can add 2 to this. So we'll make that 18. So not only are they going to be seeking and destroying the enemy, they're also going to be staying together as a team. And that's as much of the dialogue with this dialogue window that I kind of want to go into for this video. But that's a brief thing about teams. I'll also go into the reinforcement window, which is again more of a single player mission thing. But we can say that, say we wanted our flesh kits, which are team 3, so we'll set them, team 3, to arrive on turn, say turn 8. And we can also move the camera to them as well if we wanted to. So this team, team 3, will now arrive at turn 8 if we were doing a single player game. So that's very simple. I suppose we can add a little message if we wanted to. And that's that. Very, very simple. The next thing I want to go into is the, very briefly, is just the conditions window. So you can see here we've got a little bit of rain. So we can switch that off and not have anything, or we can have a bit of snow, which is something we don't really use. For this environment, I want rain. And you can also set your lighting for like your different periods of the day. So there's daylight, twilight, and night. So every so many turns, it will change to a different light shader. The next thing that's probably worth covering is if we go into the plugins tool, you'll open this window, and we use the Victory plugins tool for placing down our victory points. And this is obviously quite an essential part of the game. So here, side 0 is the space wolves, side 1 is orcs, and neutral is obviously a point that needs to be captured. So let's put down an orc. Let's put down the orc points. So by select, this is the actual tile coordinate. So if I click on that, I can now place the this victory point down, which is victory point 16. So I'm just going to put that down there. We'll put down another orc victory point, and that can be like by this kind of communication relay. I'm going to set this victory point to side 0, and this is going to be a space wolf one, so let's have that there, and that's going to be side 0, and we're going to put this one, we'll put this one like there. And if we wanted a neutral point that was kind of, we could just kind of stick one, let's just stick one kind of like there, that'll do. So that doesn't belong to anybody. So here, below that is basically the winning condition. So this little plus means we can actually switch these off. So if we switch these off completely, it really doesn't matter on the victory points. It's just whichever side kills everybody first, really. So by switching, say, this one on, we can change our term limit to whatever it needs to be. So say we wanted the mission to end at turn 18. At the moment, we have 5 victory points. So the first person to capture 5 victory points within 18 turns is the winner. And likewise, we can do the same with defend, and that's really important. And that's the victory point plugin tool at a very basic level. But again, I'd like to do another video on this in more detail. The last really important thing is our deployment mode. So at the moment, there is no deployment with this particular symbol. It just means that where the units start is where they start in the game. If we click on it, you'll see that there's like two little like pawns with some arrows on a tile. That basically means that both sides get to deploy. They both get a deployment phase, which allows them to rearrange their starting positions for their units. If we press it again, that just means that the Space Wolves get a deployment zone and the Orcs don't. That's the tools in a very, very basic and a very, very basic level. From here you can start playing around and testing your levels and hopefully creating some really interesting looking maps. And that'll be really fun to see. So I hope to see some of your user created maps, and hopefully we'll do some more videos if you like them. Thank you very much. I was Mark at Straylight. See you later.